guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, going to go over an email that was sent from a subscriber. That's from a guy. He is 53 years old. He's from across the pond over in the UK. And he shares his story how for 20 years, this guy went through a loveless, SCX-less marriage to protect his boy. You're going to see this guy in this story here grew up in a dysfunctional family, no male role model at all to show him the ropes on things. And the first girl that gave him any attention, jumped into a relationship with her. Our guy here describes himself as always a devout Christian, really wanted to have a great family, that type of thing, because he grew up in a really effed up family household. And because, again, with the lack of a role model and any self-worth, he picked the first girl that gave him attention. And it was a disaster. And so this whole story here is an important public service announcement video to show you guys out there what not to do. Why it's so important to work hard, to build up your self-esteem, that you can have respect for yourself and learn from guys successful guys when it comes to women and reality, how things are with women. So you don't end up like this where you're pushed around, taken advantage of, because these guys that have no experience whatsoever, that think they're worth nothing, they'll take whatever they can get. And they put the girl on the pedestal, they kiss her butt, and of course she treats them like crap, right? And they can end up in miserable relationships, miserable marriages. And this guy here, although he stays in it to protect his boy, because he didn't want his boy to grow up in a bad household like him, I make the point that he was not, that's nice he did that for his son, but he robbed himself of decades of happiness. And so I'm going to go through this, guys. You're going to see, obviously, where he went wrong. I'm going to point these things out, not to be a jerk, but just to help him out. And now he's in his 50s, and obviously he's been with her for a long time. And I give my advice at the end of what I think he should do now in his 50s, that he still has, obviously, plenty of life to live, and how hopefully he can make up for some lost time here. So let me go over here, and I encourage all you guys to chime in and give this guy, your opinion, and also some advice, and also a swift kick in the ass, because he could use this in certain areas. He says, "Dear SSM, I've watched you for a while now and really enjoy your content. I find it informative and empowering, especially after years of being gaslit to having values, beliefs, and boundaries. I hope that some of the younger men in your audience might be reassured and encouraged by believing in their own instincts. I hope this goes to air sometime soon. You can call me Nigel, by the way. I'm 53 years old, from the UK, and wanted to briefly share the story of my marriage with you. I've been a Christian all my life and believe in traditional values." All right, good to meet you, Nigel. Seems like everybody that writes in from the UK, his name is Nigel. I only ever wanted a woman of the same values and beliefs to share my life with. Get in line, brother. Guys are thinking that all around the world. Doesn't mean they're going to get it. I never dated or put myself out there, as I believed in keeping it pure, keep my virginity and dignity, and pray that my future wife would find me optimistic right. Well, you can pray all you want, but you also got to take action, my friend. I met my wife at church, and you can call her Ann. I was 19 years old, and Ann was 23. Ann was studying to be a nurse in the NHS, National Health Service, and I was bouncing between dead-end warehouse jobs, not very attractive, right? Well, number one, she's older than you. That's the wrong way to go. If it was for hooking up, that's one thing, but no. And she's a nurse. Obviously, you watch my channel, you know the stereotypes there about those types. And you say, she's a church girl, but I don't think nurse and church girl, what you'd associate with church girl, tend to go together. Although, here, I don't know how things are in the UK, but over here in the States, a lot of the young gals that are definitely, the so-called religious ones tend to be the biggest freaks in the sack. So we both joined an informal friends group of a dozen other young Christians at the church. I'd always been shy and low in confidence, with no idea how to talk to women, so found this mixed group of 20-something people welcoming and easy to deal with. Okay. Get out there, socialize, talk. Guys, if you have social problems, hard time talking to people, the quickest way to fix a problem is to talk to people. Just go out. You're standing in line in the grocery store or Walgreens or McDonald's, sometimes somebody look at somebody and smile and say hello. Or you're at the counter talking to somebody, just say, "Hey, how's your day going?" or make a comment on something. You're standing in line, and there's magazines and newspapers, and you can see headlines about something going on, and you can just make a comment about that. Practice. Just like anything, practice, practice, practice. You can practice with dudes and then other people, and eventually start practicing with women you have zero attraction for. The 500-pound lady in line next to you, you know, if she doesn't eat you first, you can make a comment about that. Just chat people up. And eventually you get more comfortable talking to people, and you can start talking to babes. One step at a time. Otherwise, you're going to be so shy, you'll take what you can get, and it doesn't go too well. There you go, a little pep talk for the shy folks. Guys, there were times in my life I was shy, and I could talk to anybody. I don't give a shit. I was friends with Anne for 4 years before ever considering her as a potential partner. During our friendship, we spent a lot of time together at church, on pilgrimage trips, fundraising events, outreach missions, and spiritual retreats, all within the safety of the friends group. Well, problem is you're never going outside your comfort zone. You're always in the, safe space, if you will, of this church friends group. Now, at least you expand out to there, but you want to get anything in this world, guys, you got to go out of your comfort zone. You got to make things happen. I found Anne to be kind, caring, chaste, generous of spirit, and devout in the Christian faith. These are exactly the qualities I was looking for in a woman. And yet you've known her for 4 years and she showed zero interest in you. What does that say? I'd known her for 4 years when I realized that she wanted to change the nature of our relationship. I was so nervous and shy, I couldn't ask her out on a date. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go on a date, having never been on one before. So you can see the problem right here, guys. Aside from being super shy, and he has this idea in his head of the type of gal he wants to get, he also has no experience with women. None. And the problem is, for a guy who obviously wants something else in this world, in his case, he one day wants to have a family and all that, and that's great. The problem is that when you have no experience and you're that shy, the first girl that even looks at you, you're like ready to give her your heart and soul. That's a problem. That's why you need practice. Now, of course, like I say, guys, when you're young, you got to focus on your grind and making yourself something in this world. But if you are a dating relationship guy, it doesn't hurt to have some practice. But they're at the bottom of the list of priorities. It was just before Anne's 28th birthday when she asked me out. Anne took me to a local motorsport circuit to watch racing. How could I refuse? It was just the first date, right? So I want to point out that you said she's 28. What happens when women turn 30? That's when they really start panicking because they're turning 30, because they know that, they're not going to be as desirable as they once were. Or there's also, the baby making years, or, the older the woman gets, the more difficult it can be, the more chance of high risk pregnancy, So they're usually trying to find a guy, a husband, and in a lot of cases a sucker, by the time they get close to 30. So the date went really well. And as I knew quite a lot about motorsport and was able to talk about the drivers, cars with ease. And was also a big motorsport fan. We talked and watched the races, then went for a meal afterwards. After we parted that evening, I thanked her for a lovely day, but I couldn't bring myself to kiss her goodnight. So shy was I. The next day I came down with a terrible head cold. Smack! Dude, you gotta have the balls to kiss the chick. You'll know right then and there if she's interested or not. It had rained constantly all day at the racing. I was ill in bed and off work for 3 weeks. Man, that's a serious cold. I was so ill that I totally forgot to call Anne once. When I saw Anne again at church, she thought I had dumped her and blanked me. Blanked you? What do you mean blanked you? I explained and apologized, and rather than being angry, Anne wanted a second date. That was probably the only thing you ever did that caused any attraction for her, the fact that you forgot to call her back after the first date. She's probably like, what the hell? I'm so amazing. I'm amazing Anne. Every guy wants me. This guy didn't call me back? That probably actually caused some attraction. Very quickly, she was my girlfriend in an exclusive relationship. We had a lot of fun, trips away, night out, but no sex. Hold on here. You want a second date and already you're in an exclusive relationship? Smack! What I tell you guys about when guys get no action and no experience, and the first girl pays attention to them, boom. You don't get into a relationship with a girl on a second date. I know you thought you knew her from your friend group and doing activities and all, but you didn't know her, as most guys don't. I wouldn't be agreeing to any kind of exclusive shit for at least 5 or 6 months. At least. Second date, that tells her, man, this guy will do anything. Remember, women don't respect guys that are easy, that just kiss their ass. You all know this. Just to be clear, we were both virgins. Are you sure about that? I know you're sure about you. Maybe one part of her is a virgin, but I'm willing to bet you other parts of her weren't a virgin. We both believed in no sex before marriage and only went to first base. Kissing, cuddling, clothes on, above the waist only. Oh yay. And it was my first girlfriend, and I was so new to all this, I didn't know what I was missing, and I didn't care. I believed I was being honorable and respectful and went home with blue balls every single night. Smack! I mean, as a Christian guy, if that's what you wanted, you really wanted to wait till marriage, okay. That's your choice. But if you were obviously hoping to get some, hoping the Lord wasn't watching you that day, and you're committed to this girl, then that's stupid. And the whole honorable and respectful. Yeah, what guys that are honorable and respectful get the women chasing after them? None. I still believe that, but wouldn't recommend it to anyone else. Well, I certainly would not recommend handling the way you did. We've been dating for 1 year, and on Anne's 29th birthday, pay attention guys, 29th birthday, I got ambushed and demanded to know my intentions. She wanted to be married by 30 years old and start a family as soon as possible. What did I tell you about that 30? What are my intentions? Okay, you want to be married by 30 years old? Okay, we're going to start getting down to Chinatown. We're going to start getting freaky. Then I'll give you a goddamn ring. But you're not that way. If I wasn't going to propose right away, get engaged, and set the day of the wedding, then we would break it off and find someone else. I was shocked and terrified. In truth, I wasn't ready. But I didn't want to lose any either. I folded immediately. Smack! You bonehead. She knew that. She knew you weren't going anywhere. She knew she could make demands, give you an ultimatum, which you shouldn't have gone through with. There you go. Now here's a question, Nigel. Do you think that made her have more respect and love for you by caving to her demands, or less? We all know. Take a moment. Less. Women don't respect guys that are pushovers. They're easily bullied and pushed around. But you see, guys, what happens when a guy doesn't think highly of himself, hasn't created a life and lifestyle that he can feel good about himself, have a high self-esteem, that he'll take whatever he can get. This is what happens. And I know this was you in the past. And I know that you are a damn good dad to your boy and everything, but I have to point this stuff out to help young guys out there, so don't take too much of offense by this. I was ever a geek with all the hobbies and interests you would expect. I was a metal drummer too, with black leathers and long hair. Dude, metal, huh? That's cool. I came from a pretty dysfunctional family, so I had no real idea what a normal, healthy relationship was. Aha! That's the point, guys. And that's not your fault, by the way. It's not your fault that you grew up in the household you did and it was dysfunctional. That is not the kid's fault. And sadly, guys, this goes to show you what happens when young boys are in a dysfunctional family with no strong male role model or no idea of a relationship to look at mom and dad to see if they actually love each other. And you can get this shit. It's really unfortunate. In the absence of a strong male role model or decent best friend, I thought that this is what growing up looked like. I cut my hair and threw up my old tour t-shirts. After getting engaged, we went away for a romantic weekend by the sea and finally moved up to third base. Well, it's about time. We continued with the level of intimacy until we were married 1 year later, just after Anne's 30th birthday. 30 years old, huh? Anne was so excited by the wedding ceremony and celebrations that she became exhausted, and we did not consummate the relationship until the third day of the honeymoon. I'm not surprised, man. Dude, for everything you gave up for her, oh no, honey. I don't care if you're tired. Get on that bed and spread them. Get on all fours, spread those cheeks. We're gonna consummate this marriage right now. I agreed to a relationship on the second date. I agreed to all these things. Oh no. You ain't going to bed until we're doing this. I realize now that this was how it was always going to be from now on. You mean her way or the highway and you not getting any? During the first few years of marriage, we had regular sex as Anne wanted to start a family immediately. So that's the real reason, because she wanted a kid. Unfortunately, we both had problems conceiving and both needed complex medical treatments to resolve. We spent several years trying. I remember the ovulation chart on the fridge door. Oh, that's romantic. Where I was expected to perform like a prize stud several times on demand, depending on the phase of her cycle. This is purely to make a kid. This is not because she wanted any. Now, we can all speculate if good old Anne was, having her needs fulfilled elsewhere, given the fact that she was a nurse, but I'm not going to focus too much on that. As soon as Anne got pregnant, she lost all interest in me as a person. I felt like I was only a provider and protector. Well, marriage is a business deal. Being an older mother, 37 years old, the pregnancy was difficult for Anne. Yeah, she's in the high-risk pregnancy stage. The birth went very badly and required emergency surgery. It took months for Anne to recover, and I was happy to allow her to dwell in her femininity and focus on motherhood while we shared parenting over my son. Well, congratulations, Dad. Anne continued to prioritize my son 100% for the rest of our marriage, and I felt like a lodger who pays all the bills and expenses. You hear that, guys? Fire trucks, police cars, now bizarre-ass alarms. Everywhere I go. I'm going to pause this and come back in a moment. Okay, I'm back. And no, I'm not going to edit that out because, well, you all know me. Anyway, he's not getting any. After 4 years, I asked if we were ever going to have SCX again, which caused a massive fight. She said, "Is that all you think about?" A man's got needs, honey. Right then and there. I'm sure we can find some things in the Bible here that if, she's cheating, which she probably is, or he's not getting any, that the man's needs aren't being met, well, the man can leave. And screamed and threw me out of my own house. Dude, what the fuck? Let her scream and throw a tantrum and you can pretty much walk out on your own. If you want to leave your house, do it on your own terms, but don't let her throw you out. But again, guys, you see what happens when a guy thinks that he's dog shit and not worth anything? Right here. I knew the birth had been difficult for Anne, with physical and emotional scars to heal. No one ever considered how I felt during this experience. Well, no kidding. Because a man's not supposed to matter. I moved in with my dad and his partner for 3 months to consider my options. As I said, my family was dysfunctional. My parents separated when I was 4 years old, the exact age of my son, and divorced a few years later. I was used as a weapon by my parents and grandparents, and this screwed me up later in life. I'm working through that stuff in therapy and feel much better about myself now. Well, that's great you're working through this now. And again, guys, you guys that grew up in bad family situations, and I'm sure there are a lot of you, it's not your fault. But it is your fault if you become an adult and you repeat the cycle. You got to do things you got to be smart enough and open-minded enough to look at the situation and say, this is fucked up. It's not my fault how I was raised, but I'm not going to go down that path that my family was, that type of thing. I knew I had to go back to co-parent my son and raise him to be the man I was not, to break this horrible cycle of dysfunction and become the man I wanted to be. Well, your son's not going to become the man that you weren't unless you yourself become the man that you know you are. You knew what you had to do, but I knew this kind of sacrifice this would involve and reconciled myself to it. Spending 3 months with my dad made me acutely aware of his failures as a parent. We worked through some stuff, but by no means all of it. When Ann called me, asking me to make a choice, back I went. Well, you're doing it for your boy. Now, here's the thing, man. I don't see why you just didn't divorce her. I get you're religious. I get you said you're a Christian. But in no way, shape, or form are your needs being met in the bedroom. She treats you with disrespect. Treats you like you're just a fucking tool. You could raise your son well. Your son's going to be okay. You could divorce her. And even if you got him part of the time, but you being this unhappy, treated like garbage, that's just no way to live. I know obviously you want to do things for your boy, but life is short. But anyhow, he says here, the next 20 years, so we're fast forwarding the time, he was with her for 20 years, were sexless. A sexless marriage is defined by having sex 10 times a year or less. Sure, I got some on my birthday and our wedding anniversary, but this felt like pity sex to me. Yeah, it was probably, I guarantee you there were no BJs. I guarantee you probably She just laid there, lifting her legs to Jesus. Probably thought about, her latest Netflix show or something like that. 5 minutes later, at best, it's over with. Okay, see you on Christmas. That's no way to live. You, my friend, you're a good guy. You got things to work on, but you deserve to have a woman that actually enthusiastically wants to be with you and care about you. And sure, raising kids is exhausting and time-consuming, and it's not like you're going to hook up as much as you once did before the kid was born in most normal relationships, but still. I get you want to do things for your boy, but suffering like this, life's too short. Anne's heart wasn't in it, and it seemed like a chore to her. Oh, her heart was not in it. This only lasted a few years, anyway, until it stopped when Anne moved out of our marital bed and into the spare bedroom. This was the ultimate humiliation for me. I'm sure it was. Well, at least you have to listen to the bitch snore in the middle of the night. Bro, this is a dead bedroom, dead marriage. As Anne had focused on our son so much, so did I. I'm extremely proud to say that he's a smart, funny, confident, driven, handsome, and grounded man. He has a solid moral compass, a righteous sense of right and wrong, with a kind and generous heart. Uh-oh. Kind and generous heart tells me he may make the same mistakes you did with women in the future. You do not want that cycle to repeat, Dad. He is twice the man I was at that age. He did great school and is at university studying BA honors in a specialist technical subject. He's a drummer and has a girlfriend. Well, that's cool. He's a drummer, has a girlfriend. I hope he didn't get in a relationship with her on the second date. I hope he went all the way, after without having to marry her. I hope I didn't bore you with my tale. I try to cut out the dull bits and move to the story along in an interesting way. I hope I showed my son is the nature of loyalty, honor, sacrifice, integrity, and hope any young men out there might learn from me. I know most men would have cut loose years ago to find sex elsewhere. This is probably why there are so many single moms out there in their 30s moaning about the toxic men in their lives. Cheers, Nigel. Well, here's the thing, Nigel. That's great you love your son so much that you're willing to endure not just a sexless marriage, but a marriage where your wife did not love you, disrespected you, saw you as nothing more than a fucking tool, an ATM, that type of thing. You deserve better, okay? And he said, hope young men learn out there from you. Well, no offense, but they're learning what not to do. They're going to learn not to get into a commitment on a second date. Not to make out just one girl to be the end-all be-all of existence. Not to let her demand you marry her, otherwise she's going to leave and fall for that. Not to have a relationship like that. Your story is to teach young guys what not to do. Yeah, love your boy, but my man, 20 years of your life, you could have been a hell of a lot happier, So here's the question, what are you doing now? Are you still staying with her saying, well, I'm 53 years old, I could be dead in 10 years. I think it's now that your son's in college and he's on his own, divorce the bitch. You deserve better. And I don't mean you gotta be with some other woman, divorce her to be with some other woman, just get rid of her. It's a miserable existence. Has she shown you any love or respect? Really? And don't try to convince me that, she has, because you're not going to fool me. I've been doing this too fucking long. I know I'm a few years younger than you, but I'm not that young. You need to end it with her. And fine, you take a hit. And you can spend the rest of your years on your own, peacefully. And believe me, you'll enjoy the peace and quiet. And if you meet another chick along the way, you'll know what not to do. There won't be any rush for anything. You can spend your days with your son, watching him grow up, maybe grandkids one day. You can spend your time going to church, maybe grow your hair back long again, be that guy in his 50s with the long hair, wear your metal shirts again, play your drums, play in a band, who knows? Make yourself happy. But so, on the one hand, yeah, it's great people make sacrifices for their kids, but when you make sacrifices where you're miserable, to me, that's not a good thing. And I absolutely believe your son would have been okay. If you guys split up. Because remember, your son, trust me, observed your marriage. He observed how mom and dad clearly, they love each other very much. You may have cared about her at one point, but her actions demonstrated how she feels about you. And I just worry that your son will end up in a marriage just like you. Wouldn't that be the worst thing possible? After everything you went through for him, that he end up in the same fucking scenario? Think about that. But what's done is done. And so I'm using this as a lesson of what not to do, guys. Because I don't want this to in the dating process, the relationship process, then the marriage process. She wasn't willing to. And again, it isn't just about the sex. It's about love, respect, and you deserve better. But again, you grew up in a dysfunctional family. You didn't know what better was, right? So this is why I find it important that, it's better, in my opinion, where kids grow up in a house where instead of mom and dad hate each other's guts, they can be happily divorced instead of married and miserable, and then they get a second chance, and then they can learn from their mistakes, and then, mom and dad divorce, and each can maybe find someone that could make them happy, and those kids observe this. So please don't let the last 20 years go to waste. End the marriage now, unless you've had some miraculous thing and everything's wonderful now, which I highly doubt. End it. Take the hit, move on. You're going to be okay. And I think you'll be a lot happier. And frankly, she doesn't deserve you. So guys, a lot of lessons in this story here. I know this isn't exciting. I know this wasn't about, the usual stuff here, but you got to cover these things to make sure people understand what not to do. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Be sure to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.